This is a Callaway Apex Ti Fusion iron, and it is like no other iron Callaway has ever produced. While Callaway has made a number of really interesting and innovative irons over the years, the Apex Ti Fusion is the first one that combines both a hollow body construction along with a titanium face, and that opens up a world of possibilities, not only for distance, but also for feel. So before we get into the performance benefits of the Apex Ti Fusion iron, let's talk a little bit about the construction. As I said, this is a hollow body iron, with the chassis being forged from 1020 carbon steel, but the face being made out of titanium. So Callaway was able to design this using supercomputers and artificial intelligence to broaden out the sweet spot and make the face itself in the hitting area exceptionally thin. It's going to flex a lot more efficiently to broaden out the sweet spot and give you better performance, not only on center struck shots, but on mishits towards the heel and the toe. Inside the Apex Ti Fusion iron are urethane microspheres. They are going to be soaking up excessive vibrations and softening up both the sound and the feel of impact. So Callaway's not making any claims that the Apex Ti Fusion irons are the first titanium irons out there on the market. We have seen titanium irons in the past, but historically they have been made for as game improvement clubs or as max game improvement clubs, for players who are seeking to maximize out distance and forgiveness, for players who are shooting in the 90s and the 100s. What makes the Apex Ti Fusion iron really interesting is that it's not a game improvement club. It is not a max game improvement club. This would be much better suited or categorized, I think, as a better player's distance iron, possibly a better player's game improvement iron, because from a blade length perspective, when you're looking at the top line, when you're looking at the amount of offset that's on this iron, this is much more for a discerning golfer, someone who's lost a little bit of club head speed, but really wants to stay in that compact shape. When you look at this iron in the addressed position, it still looks compact. It still looks like it would be at home in the bag of a player who's probably shooting in the high single digits, maybe somebody who's playing off 8 or 10 or 11. This, from a size perspective, is much more comparable to the new Callaway Apex AI 200, maybe even a touch smaller, especially when you consider this dark finish. It makes everything look a little bit more compact and a little bit smaller. At the same time, the lofts of the Apex Ti Fusion irons are pretty strong. They're fairly modern. This 5 iron, for example, is at 23.5 degrees of loft. The pitching wedge is at 43 degrees of loft, but there is also an attack wedge that Callaway is making that takes you up to 48 degrees of loft. So if you're transitioning into these, you may need to pay attention to whatever your first wedges are going to be to make sure that you don't have big distance gaps between either your 9 iron and your wedges or the pitching wedge that you may be getting with the Apex Ti Fusion and your next wedge. Now, all this technology does not come cheap. The Callaway Apex Ti Fusion irons are going to go for $300 each, which means that a 7-club set is going to set you back about $2,100. Now, that is a very expensive proposition for a better player distance iron or for a game improvement iron. But again, there is a lot of new technology and a lot of really interesting stuff that's been cooked into the Apex Ti Fusion iron. Setting the club down behind the Apex Ti Fusion, I'll tell you what, it has a very thin top line. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that there is the black finish. The top line looks very thin. The blade length looks short. So this is not going to be something that I think inherently is going to appear to be nearly as forgiving as the AI 300, maybe not even as much as the AI 200. You can almost think of this as like an AI 150 in terms of the blade length and the size. The dark finish is definitely slimming and makes it look even more compact. Absolute rocket. Up, up, and away. Thin, but still some height. So now that I've had an opportunity to hit the Apex Ti Fusion irons, here are my thoughts. Standing over the golf ball in the addressed position, I think they look absolutely fantastic. I've never really gamed a set of black irons. but there is definitely a very cool factor to them. They look exceptionally thin. This looks like a better player's club when you're standing over the golf ball. The top line is thin. You don't see a lot of offset to it. The blade length is relatively short, and it plays that way as well. I found that when I struck the ball well, it absolutely jumped off of the club face. I found that I got quite a bit of pop. It felt really, really soft, softer than I would have thought otherwise. But that softness does come with a little bit of a caveat in that this club, to me at least, is definitely not as forgiving as the AI 200 or the AI 300, the newly released Apex clubs. Certainly not as forgiving as the Apex AI 300. This club's blade length is smaller. It is built for a slightly better player, and it plays like that. I think that the spin rates were up. The launch angles, I was able to certainly launch the ball high enough, but it is not as forgiving. I found that when I hit the ball a little bit towards the heel and towards the toe, it gave me a little bit more distance than I would have expected, but I didn't get the height that I was getting with the AI 200 and the AI 300. I think that it's something that a more accomplished golfer is going to really enjoy, a golf club like this. I think that they will like the look and the size and all that. They're going to get a little bit of added distance, which makes sense because you've got that titanium face, so you should get a lot of face flex. The internal microspheres to soften up the vibration and dampen up the sound are certainly doing a job. It feels soft. It even feels soft on mishits. But you feel a little bit more twist on the mishits than I did with the AI 200 and the AI 300 because that blade length is shorter, and I don't think that the MOI is going to be nearly as high. So the stability factor with the Apex Ti Fusion iron is not going to be as pronounced as it will be with the 200 and the 300. Those clubs being a touch bigger, especially the 300, they're going to be more stable on heel toe mishits. I found when I mishit the ball with the Apex Ti Fusion, I still got distance, but my side-to-side dispersion was much greater with this club than it was with the other Callaway Apex irons. And to me, again, that fits because while this club has a titanium face, and I think that we equate titanium faces and irons to max game improvement clubs, clubs that are much more distance oriented. This club is not that. It's going to give you a little bit more distance and pop again because of that hollow body construction. But this is made for a more accomplished golfer. I would think that this is something for, say, a 5 to 12, maybe a 5 to 13 handicap player. If you get much higher than that, you may love the look, you may aspire to be able to play this, but I'm not sure it's going to give you the heel toe and the side-to-side forgiveness that the Apex AI 200 or 300 will provide you, and you'll probably get a little bit better performance with that. Mixing this club in with the AI 200 and 300 would be a little bit jarring because, again, the price is going to be different, the blade length is going to be significantly different, and because you've got a black finish. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if in January or at some point in the first half of 2025, if we get something like an Apex AI 150, something that's smaller than the 200 that would be much more blendable. Right now you can blend the AI 200 and 300 together to make a composite set. Adding the the Apex Ti Fusion to that lineup would be a little bit more challenging, but I think that there's clearly a market for this. But this is clearly, to me, a better player's distance iron. If you're looking for more forgiveness, I would probably go more towards the AI 200. If you're somebody who's got a little bit more consistency with your game already and you're just looking for a little bit of extra pop, and you have a deep pocket, again, $300 a club, the Ti Fusion is very, very interesting. So that should be just about everything I think that you probably need to know about the new Callaway Apex Ti Fusion irons. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comment area below. I do try and monitor the comments as best I can and answer as many questions as I possibly can. As always, it would be fantastic if you'd like, comment, subscribe to this video. It really helps me out a lot, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks a lot.